What's up, guys? Our wrestling podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious along with Jess the Total Package, Craig the British Bulldog, the Nature Boy Joe, and Cousins out this week, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Can someone feed me today's topic?
We're not going to do a legacy on a person, Dave.
Ooh.
We're going to do a legacy on an entire division, the WCW Cruiserweight division, the legacy of.
This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait. No. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, can you do us a solid and give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019, or on Facebook Meta at Our Wrestling Podcast. Joe, you were just talking about this before recording. This was like usually the first or second hour of a 3-hour montage of Nitro or whatever. Some people watch just this, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was so exciting when it first came out, especially because it was so brand new. All these wrestlers, all these
new to us, right?
It was new to us. Yeah, it was new to the American audience because obviously they've been doing it in Japan and Mexico for years. But this style of wrestling was so refreshing to watch, especially at the time in WCW when you had so many, like, all the people on top are all these aging stars, the Macho Mans, the Hogans, the Pipers, that seeing these this new style along with all these new wrestlers was for the hardcore fan, it was like gold. It was like watching wrestling with fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's true.
It's Craig, would you say that people bought the tickets for Hogan and all this crap at the end, but they would get the real show in the middle?
It's tough to explain kind of the impact of what the Cruiserweight division was when you were watching it on Nitro each week. Like, it really was a lean forward. There was a lot of fluff, and even it was a social event for us, right? So Nitro we were always over at Jess's apartment every Monday night. You were always going to have an extended long opening segment with NWO. It was always going to be a lot of fluff, a lot of filler. But when you heard like Ray's music, Malenko's music, Eddie Guerrero's music, you leaned forward and you knew you were going to get something special. It took a while to understand why it was special. And we'll go into later when we're talking off camera about like Tenay and how they introduced it. But like WWE took a lot of time to catch up to the impact and how cool it was watching these little guys do what they refer to now as flippy shit, which absolutely wasn't flippy shit. It was just fantastic technical stuff that he'd been doing in Mexico and foreign countries. It really was like one of the best decisions Bischoff ever made and one of the best parts of Nitro.
It's the part that doesn't get talked about enough with this stuff that Bischoff put together. They always talk about the NWO, which I know deserves credit, but this was the second best thing that he ever did.
Jess has often said before during this time period where the WWF focus was always on, they had the best main events. They had the best packages, the best main events, but the undercard was sometimes a little weak. Where in WCW, the main event was usually weak, and they had these amazing undercards with the cruiserweights and all the luchadors and the Japanese guys and the Jerichos and all these new guys that were just transforming the face of wrestling and like how it was done in the ring. I mean, it wasn't just like a slugfest anymore. It was these incredible moves that they were doing.
Let's run into the light heavyweight runs, kind of where we get started. In 1991, WCW wanted to bring something different to the table by introducing the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship. And at Halloween Havoc 1991, Brian Pillman defeated Ricky Morton in a tournament final to crown the first WCW Light Heavyweight Champion. Can't wait to talk about Pillman in some upcoming episodes. That's going to be fun.
We should do a trendsetter.
Yeah, well, imagine that. I think we should, Jess. That's amazing.
Morton a little dazed. Morton turns around. And Pillman was on top. He's got the leg hook. And he's going to get it. Pillman wins it. Pillman wins it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and WCW Light Heavyweight Champion, Brian.
I was thinking the same thing. Pillman would feud with Jushin Thunder Liger and would lose the title to him in December of 1991. Pillman would win the rematch at Super Bowl II in February of 1992. That match would be named PWI 1992 Match of the Year.
Now again, high-risk maneuver.
Pillman moves. Liger hit his head on the canvas. Flying Brian using his legs.
pretty awesome. And the title would eventually be deactivated only after 11 months of it being in existence.
Brian Pillman was light years ahead of his time, and we're watching his shit. And then finally, when they make a division here, we're like, oh, okay, Brian Pillman's really fucking good. Like, and then Jushin Thunder Liger comes along from New Japan, and we're like, oh, okay, this is fucking the greatest thing we've ever seen. Like, they just blew my mind. And Super Brawl, that match at Super Brawl, holy shit. Like, holy shit, that match. Like, nobody knew. You listen to Jim Ross call it back then. Jim Ross was like jizzing in his pants, like while he's calling it. He's like, my God, oh, he did a thing. Ah! Like, Jim Ross was like ready to go because Jim Ross was built to call action like it was real and pump excitement into the product. He had shit to deal with before, like, oh my God, PN News, PN News. Like, how excited can you get for PN News? But then you see something
300 pounds,
like the light heavyweight division. Jim Ross is
He's a
like,
big
my
boy.
God, this is what I was born to do. Like, Jim Ross rips his shirt off and like fucking like starts commentating. Like, it was awesome. Like, Pillman and Liger blew my mind in 1992 as a fan, because I was like, oh, and it had been done in New Japan, you know, the whole time. We had no idea about Japanese wrestling because we didn't get it here. So like, we finally saw a taste of that. And then you see Pillman meet in the middle, and it made this delicious sandwich, whatever it was. And we're like, oh, I want more of this. So they stumbled upon this here in 91/92 with the light heavyweight division. And like Dave said, 11 months later, they're like, done. We're done with this. Like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's an interesting pairing, isn't it? You wouldn't think, oh, Pillman and Liger. Okay, let's see what happens. And then they just tear the house down. But should have seen that coming. But speaking of Bischoff, let's get into that. 1996 to 2001, Bischoff had already begun to purge other organizations at the end of 95 for their talent. He pulled from ECW, AAA, and New Japan Pro Wrestling to build a new cruiserweight division.
We didn't even know it was coming. Like, we had Guerrero, you had other people at the end of 95, Benoit, like, come back, and we had no idea. Jericho, we had no idea what he was doing. And then finally, when he brought back, when Dave's going to read on here, when he brought back the cruiserweight title, renamed the light heavyweight title, the cruiserweight title, then we really realized, oh, fuck, like, he was loading up. So you could say what you want about Bischoff. Oh, it's bullshit. He just bought Hacksaw, bought Hogan, bought Savage. Oh, yeah, he did. He did do all that. And they were past their prime. But he did it for a reason. He's like, so I'm not gonna copy to make stars like that. I'm not looking for the next Hulk Hogan. I'm going to buy Hulk Hogan. And then I'm going to buy Macho Man. And yes, in 95, they kind of flattened out. It was kind of boring. People started making little jokes like, oh, WCW is the old land. It's ex-WWE land. And they were right to a certain extent. But we didn't know.
It's where the big boys played.
Bischoff, it was where the big boys played. All that stuff.
That's right.
They played so hard. And but then you had Luger come back out of nowhere as a surprise on the first Nitro. And then we're like, huh? And then he started introducing these smaller guys. Then they introduced the Cruiserweight division. Then you realized, oh, we had to suffer through Conan in 95 because Conan was a liaison between the AAA talent. Then you had guys that he was bringing in from New Japan, Bischoff, Starrcade 95. We reviewed that all around New Japan, right? For a reason, like, because he was bringing in the talent. Then
Jess, I'm really angry with you right now.
Why?
Because you gave Conan credit for something. And I
don't know why. I did that by accident.
Nosotros somos vatos locos forever.
But in ECW, he was pulling guys like Benoit and Jericho, and who Paul Heyman had the foresight in 95 to be like, I love these guys. I mean, Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero had endless classics in ECW, just endless. And it's all awesome. And Benoit jumped in there, too. I think they had a three-way that everybody talks about. And it's just amazing. And then Bischoff's like, yeah, I want all that. I want all that stuff. Like, and so we didn't realize we were just busy bashing him for buying the old guys. And then finally in 96, we're like, oh, I get it. Like, Bischoff had this site. And then he presents, Dave, you can read on, the Cruiserweight division, which blew all of our minds more than Pillman and Liger did years before. This is an entire division that we got to watch every week. Every week.
Before I read on, I want you to look at bullet point 3, Jess, and I want you to tell me what that means because I'm insulted. I feel like, Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't use that word. We don't know what it means. I'm insulted.
What are you talking about?
Look at bullet point 3 in that paragraph. The term Cruiserweight division was popularized in World Championship Wrestling when WCW President Eric Bischoff reestablished the light heavyweight division as Cruiserweight in 96. He reactivated the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship as the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Bischoff renamed the division because he felt light heavyweight was what, Jess?
It was a pejorative term. Is that you say it?
A pejorative term. What does that mean, Jess?
It basically means that it became a term where you sort of belittle it. Like, in other words, light heavyweights were less than heavyweights. So basically, Bischoff felt like, well, when you call them light heavyweights, you're automatically saying they're less than the heavyweights. So nobody's going to pay attention to it. So
they're just little guys.
And he renamed it the Cruiserweight.
Little guys. These are little guys.
Yeah, so he renamed it Cruiserweight, which in boxing, you hear, wow, cruiserweights. That's different, right? Like you don't hear light heavyweight. If you love the heavyweight division, in other words, and then you hear light heavyweight, you're like, well, that's lighter than the heavyweight. That's not as good as the heavyweight. But if you hear cruiserweight, you're like, I like to cruise and I like weights. So put them together and we can cruiserweight together. And that's what he did. It's a great, people, again, like I said it before, it's easy to shit on Bischoff. It's easy to say, oh, well, you had all this money.
But he thought about this stuff, man.
Like, he thought about this stuff. Bischoff, he knew Sonny Ono, who linked into New Japan. He knew a lot of connections. And Bischoff's like, someday I will need those connections. And then when all this starts, the dots start connecting, right? Then he starts going now I have, Conan, we had him come over here. He was, okay, Conan, who do you know? I know Psychosis. I know La Parca. I know all these guys, Juventud Guerrera. I know all these guys that I could bring over from AAA. Yes, bring those guys over. And Rey Mysterio, he's this really small guy, really cool. You'll love him. Okay, cool. Bring him over. And then ECW, Benoit, Benoit told me to, what? Benoit say? Bring Eddie Guerrero over. Oh, you like him too? Chris Jericho? I never heard of him, but bring him over too. You start bringing them all over, and then it all just starts working. And the Bischoff's like, that's cool. I brought you guys all over for a reason because I'm rebranding it. It's going to be the Cruiserweight division. It's going to be a division that I'm going to push hard on our programming.
On March 20th, 1996, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Shinjiro Otani defeated Chris Benoit in a tournament final to crown the first WCW Cruiserweight champion.
And real quick right there, I think that might have been the last affiliation that Benoit had with the Cruiserweight division. After that, Benoit was a horseman. He never really wrestled ever for the Cruiserweight title. So it's kind of funny that he was in the final for the tournament for the first ever WCW Cruiserweight champion. And that was pretty much the last time that Benoit really was ever associated with that. Even though he was the perfect size, I always found that funny that Benoit kind of sort of kicked it off in a weird way, but he was just pulled from there.
Even looking at the notes and watching some of the matches, I kept thinking, where's Benoit? Why isn't Benoit on this list of top 10 cruiserweight matches and whatever? Yeah, because he got, I don't know if he graduated is the right term or whatever, but he was doing more main stage stuff.
They obviously thought a lot of him, right? Yeah.
He was busy jobbing to everybody else on the regular.
Right.
Less than 2 months later, Dean Malenko would defeat Otani for that title in an edition of WCW Worldwide. On many occasions, a cruiserweight match would appear to open a pay-per-view or live Monday Nitro. That's the best part. Love that. They do.
You're going to kick off here. I started breaking the notes down here into the feuds. I cannot encompass everything in this episode, so if everybody wants to fill in the blank, go ahead. But there was what Dave said here, the last line, on many occasions, a cruiserweight match would open a pay-per-view or live Monday Nitro. And by occasionally, I mean almost every fucking week in every pay-per-view. We got used to that. The opening match
what else would you do? Why would you do anything different?
The opening match would kick it off, and we're like, we would just see gems. And then they even kind of started bringing in lucha style, which was part of the cruiserweight division. And then we'd have those crazy 6-man lucha tags where they'd fucking all fly over the top rope. Now, maybe it's a little bit more dancey and too acrobatic for people. But again, you had in the cruiserweight division, you had lucha, and then you had Japanese style, and you had light American style. And it was just kind of like, in this one division, we had all this awesomeness. It just was so amazing.
It's pretty funny.
So good. Let's get into the first one that Jess laid out for us as far as feuds would go. Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio Jr. In my opinion, of all the cruiserweights, and I love them all, I think Dean might be my favorite. The man of 1,000 holds is just incredible.
Him and Mysterio, their feud to me defined it. Even though we talked about the groundwork, we didn't know when seeds are planted before you see the flowers that emerge from the ground. You don't really know that the seeds are planted. We just talked about that right now, but now when we started watching that flower blossom, I will never forget Malenko and Dean. Their matches. We were there live for one of them, Halloween Havoc 96. was just I was speechless, and that opened the card, like we talked about, and it was just like fucking phenomenal. And these two, Dave, you'll name some of the matches they took each other on here. Every time they wrestled, I was like, I'd never seen anything like that in my life. The yin and the yang of Dean Malenko. Dean was kind of like, even though he was a small cruiserweight, he wrestled more of an American style that we were used to.
He kept it on the ground,
He did the stomach buster from the top rope. He did like really like hard moves where Mysterio would like, you'd pick him up and go to powerbomb him, but then he would flip behind you and you'd never seen that before. And he'd pull you into sunset flip and you're, oh my God. Like it was just, they meshed so well together, these two. To me, I always think of these two when I think of WCW Cruiserweight division, even though there's so many other great matches and people.
Oh, yeah.
But Dean and Ray in the beginning made me just so interested in this division.
Mm-hmm. So Rey Mysterio debuted in WCW on June 16th, 1996 at the Great American Bash, challenging Dean Malenko for the WCW Cruiserweight title. Although he had lost the match, Ray and Dean just blew the American wrestling fans away with their results. We'd never seen anything like that before on WWF television, probably anywhere really, until the stuff really started to kick off. We never saw it. Period.
And I only cite WWF television because that was kind of
that was the
WWF
staple.
Was the American promotion, right? Like WCW was always struggling to catch up. We had never seen anything like that. So as hardcore WWF fans, because that's basically why we started watching wrestling, the majority of us, I think Joe introduced me to Crockett, but at the same time, we all were mesmerized by Vince and Hogan and all those guys. That's why we started watching wrestling. We had never seen anything like that on WWF television, which was the common wrestling product in the United States.
Top, hooking the legs, powerbomb Malenko. He's got the ropes in 2 and 3. Unbelievable! They're standing and applauding not only the champion but both men. 1,000 holds, Dean Malenko.
WCW was finally giving us something that we'd never seen before. They weren't copying; they were leading the way.
This is original. This is original stuff to us, right? Yeah, original stuff on what we've seen. Ray would finally win the title from Malenko on July 8th of 1996 on a Monday Nitro. I think this is really important to bring up because this is another reason why, if you weren't really an NWO guy, maybe you were, you still watched the end, but you'd tune in to see if that Cruiserweight match was going to go and if someone was going to take that title because you never knew. If it could happen on Nitro, Dave, it could happen anywhere.
When you're talking about ratings wars, it made people stay.
Yeah.
Which is important. You didn't flip. You stayed. That was huge. Yes, people might tune in at the end to watch Hogan and the NWO and see what they're going to do. Yes, that is correct. But the important thing when you knew you were going up against Monday Night Raw was stop people from doing this. Got to stop that. How do we get people to stay on this side? Then you see the cruiserweights and people are like, well, I'm going to stay. Or they might flip for a second and be like, I don't want to watch Savio Vega versus whoever.
Anybody.
And I don't mean to rip on
shitty
Savio.
promo on Raw.
I don't mean to rip on Savio.
Or fake Diesel.
Yeah, I don't want to see fake Diesel against Bob Holly. I want to see this cruiserweight match. And so you would stay. You wouldn't flip. That's the important factor that Bischoff installed in the cruiserweight division was, I want people to stay. I don't want people to flip and find us. I want them to find us and go, oh, I'm going to stay for this shit. I got to watch the entire Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio match because I will never see anything like it. If I don't, I will miss it. I will flip back over and watch Bob Holly, sunset flip Quang the Ninja, and I don't want to do that.
Ray would finally win the title from Malenko on July 8th of 96. And like I said, on that Nitro, and then we talked about it. The Cruiserweight not only was on the map, but you started to tune in every Monday Nitro, and that's where they started to take over Raw in the rankings. And of course, the NWO had a lot to do with that. But what about the first hour and a half, 2 hours, when you don't see the NWO the whole time? What are you doing in between, to Jess's point, to keep them there? And this is where they started to beat Vince and fake Diesel. I'm sorry. That's funny.
Well, I mean, Bischoff was smart enough to know that like it wasn't Jim Duggan that was keeping people from switching over.
Yeah,
it was Chris Jericho.
Exactly.
It was Rey Mysterio.
And this was the must-see on WCW programming. Fans couldn't wait for Monday Nitro to see what the Cruiserweights would bring. I know everybody in this podcast was definitely like, hey, did the Cruiserweights go yet? Hey, come back from work, going to Jess's house. Hey, did the Cruiserweights, were they already on? Did I miss them? Can we rewind it real quick? That was Monday nights for you guys for quite a while. Dean and Ray would again do battle for the title at Halloween Havoc 1996, and they would tear the house down there. Did Ray hold that title? I think he did, right?
No, Dean won it back.
Dean took it back. Hey,
yeah.
There you go.
Well again. Malenko doing the right thing. Oh, what a powerbomb. 1, 2, yes!
Yes! It is, boys! A well-deserved victory for Dean Malenko.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, hats off. What an event.
You're not going to find a better opening bout on a pay-per-view telecast anywhere than what we've just witnessed here at Slim Jim's Halloween Havoc. Dean Malenko, perseverance, determination, like him or not, he is the Cruiserweight champion.
But then Rey Mysterio would steal the spotlight. He quickly became the star of the division. I still believe it was because of the lawn dart into the truck, which
that was part of it.
Yeah, so
that was part of it.
It's one of those things that's in my head forever, and I'm like, he really hurt him. The cops are coming, right? Like that was weird.
Your natural instinct is to be like, who's the biggest guy? Kevin Nash. Who's the smallest guy? Rey Mysterio.
Let's lawn dart him into a TV
What if we
truck?
put chocolate and peanut butter together? And
it is. I swear, I talk about it every time there's a chance to talk about it. If I'm talking about Mysterio or I'm talking about Diesel or Kevin Nash, I always think of the lawn dart moment. It's there forever. I love it. So. But his much smaller size, him being Ray, not Diesel.
By the way, 26 years ago.
26 years ago. He's still wrestling today. It's amazing. Wow. He had the ability to wrestle with anyone. Ray, again, not Kevin Nash. Caused fans to rally by his side.
What was that, Joe?
I know. I was going to say, wasn't he only like 20 years old or 21 or something at this time, or like 18 or something ridiculous like that?
It's insane. At Bash of the Beach 96, Ray would defeat the Psychosis. Wow. Just thinking about these matches. And they would steal the show in the process.
Shot to the lower back, and I have no idea. Look at this. Look at this. It's almost a backslide.
In certain parts of the world, it's called Splash Mountain. Other places are Niagara. Oh! But he blocked it.
He got him. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
A dream match between Rey Mysterio and Jushin Thunder Liger took place in WCW. I'm smiling as I read this. It just brings back so much. At Starrcade of 1996, both masked wrestlers were highly respected among the best cruiserweights in the world. And we're going to get to one of the best ones ever in just a second. Not just the best cruiserweight,
and
but one of the best
I wanted to note that too, because that was like the merger, right? Like Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman were kind of the only two guys that really kind of got you stimulated in the light heavyweight phase in 91, 92. And then here comes Liger again, who's, again, we talk about like these guys that we see in American wrestling. Meanwhile, Muda and Liger and all these guys are fucking making the same legendary careers in New Japan. We just don't. Now we can see New Japan whenever we want because you can stream or whatever. But back here, you had to find Liger and Muda and all those guys. If they came over to the U.S., then you started following them.
I was going to say, you need Jess's dad's moving satellite dish to watch that one.
That's like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of crazy that the 1991-92 Liger comes over here in a 96 and faces Mysterio, who is the face of the WCW Cruiserweight division in a sense here. And it's just kind of amazing, like, to watch all of that just mesh together. Again, it was Bischoff's like relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. He loved it. Bischoff loved it. And he often took trips over to Japan to watch them and just be like, what can I do? How can I do this? It's how he got the original NWO storyline, by the way, is he took it from Japan.
Yeah, that's right.
They were doing two promotions invading the other one, and Bischoff's like, what if I steal wrestlers from another promotion and have them take over WCW? And that's when the seeds got planted. It all happened. Then
so you can argue getting the cruiserweights together is what brought on NWO. Right?
I guess Bischoff was the best stealer ever. Like, he stole everything, but fine. Like, he Americanized all of it. And if that introduced it to us, oh, cool. I'm a better wrestling fan for it. I'm a better, more educated wrestling fan for seeing Liger, for seeing the cruiserweight divisions, for seeing that storyline of the invasion angle. It just changed American wrestling. And again, he did take those ideas from Japan, but nobody had done it before. Vince quarantined himself. Vince made a bubble of WWF and said, just what I want to do goes. And it worked for a long time. And the Bischoff's like, what if we burst that bubble and go outside and pull in? Let me do that. And he did it. That's why we're doing this episode as well, because he had a short, again, his flame burned bright and then it burned out quickly. However, I'm glad it burned at all, because if we didn't get this Cruiserweight division and this Monday Night Wars, I don't know what wrestling would be in America now. I don't know like what it would have been. Quang the Ninja would be 9-time WWF champion. Pretty sure.
You know, a weird comparison would be basketball in the Olympics. I know that sounds really crazy, but the only reason why international ball got so much better and they actually compete with Americans now is because they burst that bubble. Just exactly to your point.
The Dream Team.
The Dream Team was the end of an era. It was the best basketball on the planet, and now international ball players from all over the world are taking over the NWA because of the Olympics, because they burst that bubble. It came outside and exposed. And there was even an announcer that said, he's like, this is great right now for America, but in a few years, these people are going to catch up. These other countries are going to catch up. And they sure did. And this is no different. So you start to expose, and they didn't even need it. They were already doing great things. We just didn't see it.
The whole reason why I'm doing this episode is because American wrestling that we know now in 2022, we'll get to it later. How is it not a derivative of the Cruiserweight division? How?
It is. It's all of it. It changed the landscape forever.
Is this?
Yeah, all of it is. Even it was funny. Like,
and then when Vince does stuff with Roman and Lesnar, people get mad because that's the formula that Vince knows, and people are like, "This is bullshit." I'm like, "This was what it was in early 90s before we knew Cruiserweight." Now you're mad now that Sammy and all those guys and KO and they're not all main events all the time. But again, you got to mesh it. I hope now it's different now. But at the same time, I hope they find that hybrid, because when they find it, it's beautiful and it blows up and it changes everything. I don't know what the answer is now, but us revisiting this here is proof that it can happen, that there can be an eruption. There can be something that happens where someone steals something or pulls something or buys something and they cram it together. And then you're like, oh, okay. And it's going to happen. That's right. Yeah. Let all this happen. Let AEW crash in with fucking NWA and WWF. Let it all fucking be a clusterfuck right now, because something is going to come out of it where we're like, there we go. We have a cyborg.
That's what we wanted.
You know what I mean? We have a cyborg that's going to wrestle like a cruiserweight but look like Brock. I don't know. Maybe that's going to happen. Maybe that's the next. I don't know. But this is all.
We tried RoboCop before. It just didn't work. Stop it.
Maybe. I don't know, David. I think it did. I think it worked.
Nothing's off the table. Sorry, Joe.
It obviously did, Dave. We're still talking about it 32 years later.
You just talked about
it. Capital Combat, baby.
I love it. But we haven't even scratched the surface.
Go ahead. I couldn't help but laugh a lot of times with the watching some of Mysterio's matches, because it made me think of just talking about what's going on today, with the RKO out of nowhere. They must have said half dozen times on matches that I was watching as Ray was doing Hurricane Rana's out of nowhere, because he would just catch people and it would be like, "I was a Hurricane Rana out of nowhere." I'm like, well,
he kind of,
and that,
really that way out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
It was just where you thought it couldn't be done.
One,
for sure.
Yeah, we didn't know what it. We still thought it was a Frankensteiner. But
he's not even behind you, Joe. Right now, he's doing it in a crazy spot right now, isn't he?
Yeah, there was at some point, I think it was during the Psychosis match, he jumped outside and did a reverse Hurricane Rana on the floor from the top. From jumping from the top rope, and I was like, "This is unreal."
There was another one. I'm pretty sure it was Psychosis.
It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm watching. I'm just like, this is awesome.
I don't remember what event it was, but I'm pretty sure it was with Psychosis. And Psychosis, they both were on the top rope. Funny that. And they get on the top rope together, and then Psychosis picks him up to powerbomb him. And as he's in mid powerbomb from the top rope, Ray jerks his hips and catches him in a Hurricane Rana and whips him over. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. That's insane. Yeah. It's insane.
And we're not even scratching the surface, because now we're going to get into Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero. And we know Eddie Guerrero didn't stay at Cruiserweight forever, but these are some fantastic moments. At Halloween Havoc 1997, Rey Mysterio would meet Eddie Guerrero. Many people think this is the greatest WCW Cruiserweight match of all time.
To the limit here. This is from the middle, turnbuckle. Down, 1, 2, 3.
Yes. New champion. Wow. New champion. What a fight. What a battle.
And they are standing here
for this man, Rey Mysterio Jr.
Actually, I think for both men.
I think you're right, Shabani. This man went into that ring.
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No, they would face each other multiple times with fantastic results. In late 1998, the two would be involved in a storyline where Eddie Guerrero would try and force Rey to join his group, the Latino World Order. A lot of world orders going on. If you're trying to run the world, you can't have that many orders. But They had enough. I don't know. This is where it's starting to get really stupid. That's all I'm saying. Then, like I said, we could talk about that all day, and maybe it's for another time. Maybe we talk about greatest feuds with some of these cruiserweights. Maybe that'll come in later just for greatest feud pieces. We can talk about that. Here's another one: Chris Jericho versus Dean Malenko. There's so much amazing stuff in this 5-year run, 4-year run. Dean Malenko and Chris Jericho would start doing battle over the title in 1998. The emotion involved in the Slamboree 1998 match between Jericho and Malenko made it one of the most memorable bouts in WCW history. Malenko left WCW for months after Jericho defeated him and humiliated the Malenko family. Slamboree featured a battle royal for all members of the Cruiserweight division to face Jericho.
That's what Joe was talking about here.
Championship. This is the one. Luchador, oh my gosh.
Chipotle, I think is his name. Chipotle?
Okay. Apparently that one's gonna wreck me.
Chipotle.
He won before unmasking to reveal it was Malenko under the mask all along.
Chipotle.
Wait a minute. Chicope, what's he doing here?
He's unmasking.
That's not Chicope! Look at that!
Dean Malenko!
He's back!
The man of 1,000 holes! The man that will face Jericho for the title right now!
Everyone's standing! And we're off and running!
Well, I've never seen Malenko like this! Have you ever seen him with this acceleration? What Jericho said about this man, the way he's talking about his father who's passed away.
They have great burritos.
Don't say that. Dean destroyed Jericho in front of a red hot crowd to finally get his revenge. No, you can. It's extra.
And I will never forget this Slamboree match. The pop when he took the mask off, that place popped just as big as anybody in the NWO storyline or anything like that. They went insane when Malenko took the mask off, and then Malenko later on would finally get his match because he won the Battle Royal. So he got to face Jericho, and he beat the shit out of Jericho and won the Cruiserweight title. And the place popped even bigger. It was, in this Cruiserweight division that you think of as a secondary throwaway against the NWO was
some people thought it was
fuck. It was
the
awesome.
tops.
He's trying to make it. He's 3 feet away. Less than 3 feet.
So close.
2 feet. He's a foot away.
He can pull back!
He can't make it. He can't make it.
How much longer can he withstand that pain? And then launches it. Not much longer. Malenko wins the title.
We've got a new champion. The world's toughest punkin just did it.
It's redemption for Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko battles through insults, wins this one.
And I'll tell you, just a little side note, I love Dean Malenko. I think, like I said, he's my favorite cruiserweight, and I love almost every single cruiserweight that we're talking about. I just wonder if he was a little bit better on the mic, what he could have been, and what could have happened with Dean. He achieved so much with very little to do with any kind of interview savvy skills, and just all talent, man, all talent. And the emotion was there when he got to the ring. You saw that, he could perform in there, and he could definitely work in there. But I always wonder if he had every single tool, what would have happened. Guy's incredible, what a performer. Then the WWF tries to fight back. On December 7th of 1997, the WWF would crown a new light heavyweight champion, Taka Michinoku, but the division failed to have the same impact as the WCW Cruiserweight division was pushed into the background soon after. And unfortunately, the end of an era comes to us in 1999. WCW began to lose focus on the division, and that's ridiculous. Probably a big part of their downfall. They attempted to launch stars like Guerrero, Malenko, Jericho, and Mysterio into the regular part of the card. But by doing so, they relied on the second wave of WCW cruiserweights like Juventud, Psychosis, La Barca to carry the cruiserweight division. Without the proper development and focusing more on entertainment rather than the athletic ability that made the division popular in the first place, it began to fade into the background until WCW was purchased in 2001.
My big thing, what they would do is people would clamor, even people in the locker room, push these guys. So they would do it, right? But what we meant was push these guys against Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg, DDP, Flair,
They didn't
Sting,
allow them to
Luger.
really take over.
So instead, they go, okay, that's fine. And Dave, right behind you is a perfect example. Dean has the U.S. title on his shoulder. Who did Dean feud with when he was U.S. champion? Probably Jericho, probably Benoit, probably,
it was
you know what I mean?
stuff.
Like the same fucking people that like they all feuded with or whatever. So they pushed him outside. Jericho would face Prince Iaukea, Ultimo Dragon for the TV title. So, you know, and because Jericho was TV champion for a while.
And be real,
like,
Jess,
you push him against the same guys. Like,
but you know why this happened.
Well, yeah,
some assholes had creative control. They
totally,
in their contract
totally
they
true.
shouldn't have had. You think Hogan's like, oh, you want me to wrestle Jericho tonight? That's not going to work for me, brother.
Exactly. You're right. You're 100% right. You know, it's like we wanted these guys pushed because, okay, they proved that this style of wrestling can garner a lot of attention. So instead, they're like, yeah, we'll push you with each other for the U.S. title or for the TV title. Like, that's not what we talked about. Like, we want you to push these guys against Hogan, Hall, Nash, again, Flair, Sting, Luger,
Macho
Man,
all
those guys. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett, Macho Man, like all those guys outside on the outside. Why didn't they do that? Because they didn't have the forward. They couldn't do it. Like Bischoff just didn't see it that way. He didn't.
Part of it too is that those guys couldn't have been. Those guys wouldn't have been able to carry a match of this style.
No, they would have ran circles around
Jericho and Eddie Guerrero would have to modify the style to Luger because no way Luger was going to be able to like bump for them in the way that they were going to need to be bumped.
That's what would have been so great.
You're totally right, but at the same time, you're right, Joe. But okay, you put 5 guys up there that you want, and maybe 1 or 2 guys will figure out how to take on Luger and make it work, and Sting and make it work, or whatever. That's how you make stars. I'm not saying every cruiserweight that went outside should have made it. They're all gonna fall off, right? Not everybody's gonna fucking qualify.
Well, obviously we saw that like Guerrero, Benoit obviously saw
Jericho. My point. Exactly.
Success on the main event roster, wrestling guys that were of different styles. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. With the popularity of the division in the mainstream, smaller people aspire to become professional wrestlers. Indie promotions like Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, one of our personal favorites, would embrace this type of performer, and it became normal in the industry. Stars like Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Rey Mysterio, and Eddie Guerrero all went on to become a version of a WWE heavyweight champion, some even headlining WrestleManias. Today, evidence of WCW Cruiserweight divisions are absolutely everywhere. For a division that was hidden in the shadow of giants, it found a way to influence the entire wrestling industry. Who's the best wrestler right now, you think? Active wrestler right now?
I would say Daniel Bryan.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, he wouldn't even be here. He wouldn't even
Kenny
be
Omega.
here if not for this style. There's no way. There's no way.
I mean, neither of the guys like all of the NXT guys that came out, like they were all everybody's. I mean, even non NXT guys, everybody seems to be influenced by this style.
Craig, you've been very quiet, and I've been noticing that. And the only reason why I call you out is because Craig was a massive Rey Mysterio fan. I remember when Rey Mysterio started lighting the world on fire on the WCW Cruiserweight. Craig every week was like, "Is Mysterio wrestling? Is Mysterio wrestling?" Craig really backed Rey Mysterio, and rightfully so. I like Malenko, like Dave said. I like Malenko. I like Jericho, and I like Mysterio. But Craig was very into Mysterio. He just loved him with what he did.
Yeah, there was something about the way he varied his tights, the mask. There's just so much you could do. Like it all takes a nod in the Mexican culture of lucha, and the costumes and the symbolism behind the mask and that kind of stuff. But there's so much you could do. And watching that dude, who I think started when he was 16, and it was just unlike anything you'd ever seen. Watching Ray wrestle, and then when you began to see and appreciate him versus Malenko. It wasn't just flippy shit. It was stiff. Him and Malenko, and Jess said it earlier, that stomach buster, he retired that because I think people died from that stomach buster. But you were introduced to Psychosis and Hoovy and Jericho and Eddie, and thank God for taking a chance. And it's led to today in 2022 where the smaller guys kind of still rule, like Rollins style, Daniel Bryan.
You can also fight too.
Adam
Is that
Cole,
the best thing though? Then you push guys like Lesnar and Roman, and you're like, yeah, they garner all the mainstream, and they might. But if you push these smaller guys the way you push a Lesnar and a whatever, can you get the same result? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but obviously this style has infected in a good way
We
all
did.
of today's wrestling.
I refer back to Daniel Bryan. It worked. We did.
Well, yeah. Well, look at Seth, right? You're right. And that's a good point, Dave. You have guys like Jericho and Daniel Bryan that make you forget how small they are. Benoit made you forget.
Didn't matter.
Bret Hart.
And you know who never let them forget how small they are and why it wouldn't work was Vince. From what he did, look at how small and diminutive and tiny.
Shawn Michaels is small.
Taka Michinoku, that was who he put on light heavyweight, not a muscle on his body. He worked his ass off, but it just was absolutely not the same. It was not the same quality.
Because Vince didn't push it.
No.
Well, let's be real. Why did Mysterio put on
it.
so much? Why did Mysterio put on so much weight for a title run?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he bulked up for sure.
But Jess did give us a little treat here. He gave us the top 10 best WCW Cruiserweight matches ever listed by thesportster.com. We'll give them a little plug if they still exist. Number 10, Rey Mysterio versus Jushin Thunder Liger at WCW Starrcade 1996. Number 9, 3 Count versus, I gotta say, June Dragons.
Jung Dragons. Oh my God, this match was so fucking good.
Because if I had said Hung Dragons, you would have been really upset. And I said it anyway. At WCW Starrcade 2000, this was a good one, Jess.
So good. God damn it. Yeah.
Got to go back and check these out. I think getting the network alone just for these matches would be worth it. Number 8, Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio at WCW Halloween Havoc of 1996. Number 7, Billy Kidman. You forget about him. And Rey Mysterio versus Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo at WCW Greed 2001.
Oh, that is old. That is like towards the end.
The sign moves forward, and it drives him down. The last 10, 2, 3. We've got new champions. I can't believe it. Pete Coney from the Asai moonsault. The strength of Romeo.
After a match like that, almost 20 minutes of nonstop action, he still had the wherewithal and the power to catch Ray Jr. from the Asai moonsault. There are your new Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions.
Towards the end, but it was for the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship, which they introduced for like 5 minutes.
That's right. We talked about the Forgotten Championships in our archives. That's one of them. Yeah,
Yep.
it's in the archives. Number 6, Chris Jericho versus the Ultimate Dragon, WCW Bash at the Beach 1997. I'm going to go back and watch all these later when this podcast is over. Number 5, Rey Mysterio versus Billy Kidman versus Juventud Guerrera at WCW Starrcade 1998. Number 4, Juventud Guerrera versus Blitzkrieg at WCW Spring Stampede.
What was the last one?
I watched that last night. Jesus
Who
Christ.
was Blitzkrieg?
Juventud catches it.
Not a Hoovy.
He's not going anyplace.
Super Hoovy driver off the top.
He's not going anyplace.
1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
You're right, Brain. What a way to kick off Spring Stampede.
I don't know. I could probably go online and look at it. I have no idea who it was, but good God, that match was so good.
He was good. At Stampede 1999. Dean Malenko versus Chris Jericho at Slamboree 1998. Number 2, Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis at Bash on the Beach of 96. Number 1, with a bang, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc in 97. Jess and Craig, I believe at least you two were there for that one, right?
Yeah, we were.
Were we there? You were there for the 96 one, too.
Yeah, we were there for 96. I'll never forget. We got spoiled.
Absolutely spoiled.
Ridiculous.
So
to see Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio and then Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio back-to-back years on Halloween Havoc's like 2 of the greatest cruiserweight matches ever. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, not to get too into it. And then you would see them after in the hotel at the Betty Boo Bar, as they talked about.
Yep.
Every year. Super cool. Craig, what's your favorite on this list, man?
It all kind of mixes all together to me. But
it's a mix of greatness.
Yeah, but I think Rey Mysterio's music kicks in for me when I think of the Cruiserweights and that entrance down the walkway. Same with Malenko's music and his twisting of the thing. I think those 2 guys.
Malenko, man.
That's what he did.
They will forever be in my memory. Like
it works.
He couldn't promo, but it didn't matter.
Psychosis was great. Juventud was great, but like Malenko and Mysterio to me, like I remember them like fondly.
We talk about all these guys
everything they did.
Mysterio's still going, and Jushin Thunder Liger just retired, a few years ago?
Yeah,
we saw him at New Japan Pro Wrestling in Long Beach, and I think he was they said he was 52 wrestling at that time.
And he just started his year goodbye. He was taking 1 year to say goodbye, and he told the world,
and I was like, this guy's still going. How old is he? And some guy like 2 rows down, dude, he's like 52, bro. I was like, are you serious? And he was still like, you didn't notice. Like the guy was amazing. So it's just fantastic stuff. Joe, you got a favorite on this list?
I watched a handful of stuff last night. I mean that the Eddie Mysterio, it deserves to be at the top of that list for sure.
Yeah.
And I loved Malenko and Jericho. I thought that was unreal. That was an unreal match. So
good stuff. Jess, any last words on this one before we send it out?
No, I wanted to change this instead of doing a single wrestler legacy. I mean, this whole division literally defined the whole generation afterwards. You know, Ring of Honor and PWG erupted because finally, oh my God, you mean there's a niche audience out there that loves actual wrestling, like the progression of what the sport's becoming. Like I just think that this division is so fucking important, and it's understated. Nobody talks about it anymore, and I'm like, it's what you watch now. Like,
until you brought up the topic, Jess, I didn't realize, and I started to think about it. And I was like, this is everything now. What we're talking about, what is the foundation of everything you're seeing today.
Without the exposure that Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Rey Mysterio got from here, I don't know if they achieved the success in WWF that they got. Like, how valuable would they have been? You know, Vince wanted the most valuable people after WCW was bought to pull in, like, after a while. And like Jericho, I know, left before, so did Benoit. Before WCW folded, they came over, but still, like, it was off of that. And even though Benoit, we established earlier, wasn't really part of the Cruiserweight division, but he was a small guy. He was a smaller guy.
Mm-hmm. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, could you do us a solid and give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019, or on Facebook Meta at Our Wrestling Podcast. For Craig, Jess, and Joe, this is Dave with the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.